Hello, welcome back to Oliver's Greenhouse. In this video, as promised, we're going to be making one of my DIY custom mounts. So I've got some bits together for that. We're going to be able to look at that in a minute. A big thank you to all of you guys that voted in the poll. I really appreciate you guys getting involved. And I think it works out better for both of us. You know, engaging the audience. I find it interesting, getting you guys to sort of make a decision for me. And I enjoy making the videos. So a big thank you to all of you. So like I said before, I've been to the DIY shop today. I've got a new glue gun because the other one was just a bit pony, it wasn't really up to the job. I've got all the items here together. What I'll do is I'll pick you, and excuse me for the lighting today. It's always been a bit dark in the past, so what I've done is I've actually brought the work light in from outside. So it's like actually looking at the centre of a neutron star from here, looking at the camera. It's so bright. But you should be able to see me a lot better. I'll pick you guys up. We'll come down here on the table and we'll run through all of the things that you're going to need to build one of these DIY orchid mounts. Okay, so here are all the things you're going to need to do this. Basically laid out on top of the worktop here. You're also going to need some newspaper. That's not here, but you will need that. That will become apparent in a minute. What I'll do is I'll move the camera down a little bit closer and we'll run through each thing individually. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is some of this gutter guard. Okay, it's pretty cheap. You can find it on Amazon or on eBay. It's just simple plastic mesh. You're supposed to put it in along your gutters and stop the leaves and detritus building up and clogging up your gutters. But obviously it's just ideal. It's flexible, it's strong, it's ideal. This is going to form the basis or the outer shell of our mount. So that's the first thing you're going to need. The next thing you're going to need is some of this foam. I got this from an aquarium shop. It's basically a type of filter. It goes in the koi pond filters, and it's relatively cheap. I think this whole block cost me about £10. Relatively easy to get hold of. We're going to be using this. Is going to form the edge of the mount. So this basically goes all the way around the outside, and because it's so porous, it allows plenty of air movement and allows the potting media to breathe. The next thing you're going to need is a glue gun, like this. Just a cheap glue gun, hot glue gun. Please be careful, that is really hot. Don't let kids fiddle around with these things. And a glue stick, as obvious, for obvious reasons. We need something to stick this stuff together. These hot glue guns are ideal for this sort of thing. By the time it's gone off, it sets like rock, holds these mounts together perfect. An S-hook, for obvious reasons. We're going to need something to support the mount or something we can hang it off the mounting wall with. These are ideal. We can twist them, form them, we can even glue them onto the mount so they're held in place, and it means we can support it when the plant's attached to it. 1 epidendrum pour packs, obvious reasons. Some 15-pound fishing line and sailmaker's needles. Newspaper, we're using hot glue, sticks like what's it to a blanket. You're going to need something to mop it up. Okay, so we've got the gutter guard material here. So this is what we're going to need. We need to cut this to size basically. So we need to work out the length of the mount. This is quite a rambling orchid and it likes to spread. So I'd like to give it enough room to not have to worry about it for quite some time. So I'm thinking something about this sort of long probably. Hopefully it's going to ramble quite happily over the surface of the mount. I think it has a habit to grow downwards as well. I don't think it's particularly phototropic or geotropic. I don't think it's particularly fussy. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is just basically double up the material like this and just fold it over. So we've got both sides of it, and then we can work out how big we want to make the mount. I wouldn't have thought any bigger than that sort of size. If we line the actual shapes up, so geometrically, then we know we're going to get a clean cut across the bottom. Okay, so I can see where that is now. Just going to keep that pinch between finger and thumb. I'm just simply going to cut up the middle of the diamond shape, straight for the middle, so we've got, watching our fingers. Right, so we've got the selected piece. We've still got enough there for another couple of small mounts or one big one. So this is going to be our mount here. And what I'm going to do is what I did before is I cut the thing in half again here, and I mounted it so that a piece of foam went all the way around the inside. I'm not going to do that this time. What I'm doing is I'm going to leave that as like a little pocket here, and what we'll do is we'll glue some of the foam material, some of this material, you can pick it up without making too much of a mess. What I'm going to do is going to cut some of this material to size, and it's basically going to fill the void in and around here like this, depending on how well it works. If we can get a nice tight fit, then that's going to be ideal. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Right, so that's all cut to size. The glue gun's heating up. The next thing to do is going to be cutting this material, this foam material that I've just dropped on the floor, to the right size. So what we're going to do is just have a look at that. I'll stop the video, I'll get a chopping board and a sharp knife together and a straight edge, and we'll cut this into a couple of pieces so that it fits in and fills and forms the side of the mount. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. This is just a spare aluminium strut out of the greenhouse. This is what forms part of the staging around the outside. It's just surplus, I don't actually need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use it as a straight edge to basically run a knife down. This is a very sharp filleting knife out of the kitchen drawer. So what I'm going to do is just cut it quite thin like that. So it's about ½ an inch thick, something like that. And then just using the knife, I'm just going to slowly, very gently. Bear in mind I have got a chopping board underneath here as well. Please be careful with your fingers when doing this. You might want to wear gloves if you're a bit cack-handed. For the sake of this, it's I've sustained enough injuries to my hands over the years, what with doing tree work, to know what I'm probably going to be okay with. That just comes away quite nicely. There we have it, this thin strip here. We're going to need 2 of these, so that's 1 done. We're going to need to try and get it about the same width again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stack that on top, a little bit more this way, a little bit wider, just to give myself a guide. Nothing has to be perfect, but just giving it roughly the same size is going to make the mount a lot neater when it's finished. That's about there. Okay, put these bits down here, and the knife. So what you should end up with is 2 almost identical pieces of foam. And they're not spot on, but they're as near as damn it, they're going to be fine for our requirements. So we're going to need a little bit more newspaper. I'll turn you guys off, get some newspaper set up, and then we'll start gluing them out together. Okay, so in order to make this even, what we're going to do is we're just going to fold it in half, take it to the edge, like this, lay it out flat, and just pinch down there so we're creating that little edge so we can see the halfway point. So we can see where we're going to need to glue this material on the inside, and that's going to be glued into position like that. So what we need to do is form the netting over the foam in such a manner as this. It's quite fiddly, everything wants to spring back out of the way and generally move about, so it's a bit tricky. The best thing, or the best bit of advice I can give you at this point in time, is to tack it in place in a couple of locations. So get it lined up where you're happy with it. Make sure we're far enough down the mount so it's going to fill that little recess in, leave a little bit of excess. Then using our glue gun, just Just apply a little bit of glue like that, just to hold it in place. Now the trick is not to rush with this, because if you do, I'm just blowing on that just to cool it off a bit quicker. Getting it to set, what you don't want to do is it just spring out and pull itself out of the, or off of the material, because it's a real pain in the backside getting it back on there. What I'll probably do is speed the video up here, so this will zip along really quickly, and you won't have to sit here listening to me prattle on about each single step of the way as we go. Okay, once that side's pretty much set, it's time to go on and do repeat the process with the other side. Okay, so the beauty about this stuff is it goes off hard really quickly, which enables you to work on it really fast. So I've just fast forwarded that bit of the video, but that's one side done. All we're simply going to do now is just turn it over, put it taut where we can, hopefully position it relatively straight on here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to glue this side now. Okay, that's that side done. Wondering why I'm suddenly wet? I just popped outside to cover up the log store. The English rain is finally here. It's absolutely hammering down. You might even hear it on the video. This side's gone off now, so it'll be time to repeat the process on this side. And I've noticed there's a little gap down the bottom here where it's not quite. I basically haven't moved this side down far enough. So what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of excess here left up on the edge. We were just going to cut these off anyway, so we'll start by cutting off that side straight away. Just a pair of scissors, cut that side off there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just a small piece of this. I'm just going to cut it and just fit it in the bottom, just to fill that gap up, just to stop any of the media from falling out of the bottom, because we don't want to spend all that time filling it up and then some of it drop out the bottom. Yeah, I don't need much, just a little nugget off the end of it, something like that. All we're going to do is just open that up and just fit that down inside there, and it's going to get covered with hot glue anyway as we repeat the process on this side. Okay, so that's this guy pretty much gone off now. We've managed to glue both sides and built up a sizable bead down both ends to hold the mesh together. The foam goes to the bottom of the mount on both sides now. A few of these little hairy bits, always find those. We need to cut this off. That sticks up and looks stupid. So that's the mount pretty much built now. We've got one more thing to do. This is the back, so it's slightly higher at the back than it is at the front. I haven't planned to do that, but now that it's appeared like that, I'm going to say that was all part of the design. It's clearly not. So what we're going to do is fix something to hang it from. So what I propose to use is an S-hook. We've just got a normal S-hook here. This is quite thin, it's just a piece of galvanised wire. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to twist the whole thing together like that, almost into a circle, and then I'm just going to bend it. Probably best to use a pair of pliers to do this. I have relatively strong fingers. Just to make a double hook like this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to fix that to the back of the mount, just like this, using a little bit more glue, just out of sight, so we can hang it when it's all complete. Okay, so that's pretty much gone off already. So we've got the hook on there, so we're ready to hang it up. The next thing we've got to do, a little bit of stray glue, just pick that out of the way so it's out of sight. What we've actually got to do now is get some media mixed up, ready to fill it up. So what I'll do is I'll clear up, have a bit of a tidy up, it's nothing worth leaving a load of mess in place. Then we'll fill this up. And what I'm thinking of doing, because obviously this is already in a pot, so it's kind of growing, if you can imagine it, it's going to hopefully have a lot of roots in here. What I'm probably going to do is, I'm probably going to mark a hole in the front of the mount here. I'm going to cut it out, the same size as this, and then when we filled it through, filled the rest of the mount full of media, I'm going to actually unpop this and insert the orchid so that its existing root system ends up inside the mount, and then fill the rest of the media in around it. So hopefully that'll pan out pretty well. Fingers crossed. Famous last words. Okay, so for the potting media, we're going to be using, I've got a small random stick there. We've got a very small amount of perlite. We've got some fine grade orchid bark. And predominantly we're going to be using sphagnum moss. We want a really moisture retentive a mix for this media we're going to be putting inside the mount. So that's what I'm going to be using. Just need to get up and cut some of this moss up. Nice, this is already pre-wetted. I keep it relatively moist. I mean, it's basically antibacterial, it's basically antifungal. You've got to remember how long this stuff takes to break down in a peat bog. It's like 500 years, something like that. So I just keep mine wet. It sits out in the cold. It saves rehydrating stuff. I just keep a small amount of it wet. The majority of it's just locked up as a solid bar. And obviously I grow some in the greenhouse as well. If I'm using it, I use that more predominantly for carnivorous plants. So just trying to watch my fingers. I want to keep all of my digits attached to my hand today. We're just cutting this up finer so it just fits inside the mount better, and also will combine with these other ingredients a lot better as well. This may look like a lot, but it's amazing how much this stuff packs down inside the mount. So you always need to have more to hand than you would necessarily assume you're going to need. Just watching my fingers. So I'm just going to dice that up, and then we can combine all of these elements to form one conglomerate media, which is hopefully going to allow plenty of aeration. That's pretty much why the perlite's there. That'll allow aeration. The orchid bark basically is more orchid friendly. It's more familiar to what they would be attaching their epiphytic roots to anyway. And the sphagnum moss is just to retain as much moisture as possible. Saves on watering, especially in summer. You don't want to cut stuff up too fine. I don't want it to be dust. I just want to make it easier to mix up. Okay, so that's probably enough. Just mix all of the elements together, fling it all over the wife's kitchen. And we should end up with a nice airy sort of mix. Something that looks like this. Perfect. So the next step is going to be filling the mount up. Okay, so we've got the mount handy. Everything's glued on there. The hooks are glued on the back nice and firmly. Doesn't look like much, but it's surprisingly strong. So the best thing to do now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit it to about this point here. And then we're going to take this guy out of the pot. We've already got these nice aerial roots here, so what we don't want to do is bury these straight into potting media. I want these to sit on the outside of the mount to start off with. So we'll take the pot off the bottom. We're going to cut a shape of probably about here on the mount, so a circle out of there. We'll fill the media up to about this point, take the pot off, stick it in like a great big plug to fill the void up, and then put the rest of the potting media in and around it. So the next step, fill this guy up. These are a great design, these mounts. Thank you. Like I said in one of my previous videos, I take no direct credit for these mounts, although this design is slightly different. Brad's Greenhouse, if you're not familiar with his YouTube channel, please go ahead and check it out. It's really, really good. He does a lot of great videos on there, a lot of good updates. I've been watching him for quite a number of years before basically using his inspiration to start my own channel. As you can see, we're going to need more of this media already. I've already put that much in. It's only filled this much of the mount up so far, so it's quite apparent we're going to need some more. Patting it down. What a nice water retentive core to encourage, when the surface dries out, to encourage the orchid roots to bury themselves deep inside in search for water or moisture. It's going to help no end when it comes to really hot days during the summer. It's going to cut down on watering dramatically. I've actually been thinking about that for next summer. What I'm probably going to do is end up diverting the misting system so that it runs across the top of the orchid mount wall, so that basically every time it tries to pick every time it increases humidity in the greenhouse, it's also going to spray directly onto the orchid mount wall, which in turn will keep them nice and moist throughout. So we're filling up quite nicely now. I'm almost out of the media. You can see how much was in there. It's already disappeared inside the mount, so they do hold a hell of a volume if you're not careful. Just giving it a squeeze. It's quite nice and tightly packed in there now. Put this last little drop in, and then we're going to have to make up a bit more. Before we go any further with that, I'm just going to have a little look at of the height, because I want this orchid almost in the middle there. So before we go any further, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a small circle around the middle here. There you go, so we've got a bit of a hole there. Now hopefully the plan is, once we've taken the orchid out of the pot, we'll be able to push him in through there, and then fill the remainder of it up with media around it, so those roots which are already inside the media remain in the media, and then these aerial roots are left pushing against the moist surface of the mount, and therefore hopefully start to proliferate into the media that we're providing for them. Just going to make this a little bit bigger, it's just a bit too small. There we go. Where's he gone inside? There we go. So hopefully that'll fit now. Just have another little quick go. Yep, that actually fits inside now. So when we unplug him, we'll be able to just pop him on there. What I'm going to do now is quickly turn you off, make up some more potting media, and then we'll go on to the next step, filling this area up and then popping him inside. Right, let's get the little guy out of the pot and we'll have a look. There's the tag. We'll make a new tag for this once we're finished. So I don't know how root bound it's going to be in here, or even what I'm about to find in here. Ah, right, okay, so we can see there's a little bit of fine grade orchid bark. Just in there, we're going to ditch that. Surrounded by what looks like a decent plug of quite fresh sphagnum moss. And because we're putting this into a mount, I'm not too concerned about salt or residue build up from the feeding materials or from the fertilizer we use, because it will just drain straight out of the mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert that plug straight inside the hole we made for the pot, just for this purpose. I'm just very carefully going to do that, being careful not to damage any of these roots. I should be able to pop the whole plant, or the whole root system, the pot bound root system of the plant inside the actual mount. It's going in quite easily. You can see that's just gone down inside the mount now. I'm just going to use a finger just to make sure every last bit of it ends up recessed inside. Okay, so that's all of the old root system now is inside. A lot of the aerial roots are now pushed up against the lower portion of the mount. And what I'm going to do now is just fill back in around here. We may not even need to actually tie or sew the orchid into position here, because I think there's actually going to be enough media packed in around it that it will just be held in place quite comfortably. Making sure just to firm it right in around the corners. We really want this to act as an anchor for the orchid, really. Completely then dismissing the need for any sort of fishing line or string or any other means of attaching it. It just won't be necessary. We're nearly at the top now. Just going to give the mat a little squeeze, pack it down again. Another little bit of top dressing in here, and then we're going to be done. That's it, just to fill it up. Okay, so that's not going to fall out of there now. Time that's hung up, hanging in the greenhouse, that's not going to go anywhere. A few little bits of, it's quite firmly held in place. So there we have it. As requested, the custom orchid mount, Epidendrum Porpax, on our DIY mount. You've had a tutorial on how to build this. It's relatively cheap. All I've done is use 2 glue guns, the material, 2 glue sticks and the glue gun. We've already had the material lying around. Standard sort of potting media, if a slightly moisture retentive one. And there we've got him. Happily mounted, no need for string, packed in for ready to pop into the greenhouse. What I'll do is I'll give this a nice watering now, let it soak with some room temperature rainwater, hang him up on the wall, and next time we do a greenhouse tour we'll be able to see how he's getting on. So remember, if you like this video, don't forget us a thumbs up, and if you feel like it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.